Super Rugby quarterfinals this weekend, folks. The teams are out. Let's go through them. Some of the head-to-head matchups this season. How did the results go in the regular season? Some stats, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on how things are going to go. Game number 1 on the Friday. The Chiefs, who were 4th, taking on the Reds, who were 5th. Looks like the tastiest one on paper. It doesn't always work out that way, but it certainly looks like an interesting one. Just how close the sides were on the actual table, and because the Chiefs lost to the Reds in the regular season. It was way back in round 3, and it was at Suncorp. It wasn't in Hamilton where this one's going to be played, but these Chiefs have lost to these Reds in the past, recent past. So that adds just a little bit of extra spice to this one. For the Chiefs, though, they're able to bring back a bunch of All Blacks, especially in the back line, but also in the forward pack with Tupavai returning to the 23. ALB is back, and Morinara was back. Sean Stevenson was back. Remember, some of these guys were named last week, but ended up kind of being late withdrawals. These guys are back in the squad this week. Nana Saturo switches to the left wing, and Tokiaho, another All Black, is there at hooker after being on the bench for last week. So Slater drops to the bench. Likewise, Arkoi. Jacobson's going to lead the side from the back row, not second row. And D-Mac, leading point scorer, still in Super Rugby, is going to want to be kind of keeping that scoreboard ticking over for the Chiefs at number 10. For the Reds, kind of minimal changes, barring a bit of rotation at tight head and at 10. But keeping in mind, the Reds have got an extra day's rest on the Chiefs because the Reds played on Friday last week, and this is a Friday game, whereas the Chiefs played on Saturday, although the Reds do have the travel to contend with coming across the ditch, whereas the Chiefs had to drive back from Auckland for last week. So Tumunga Allen is the guy who gets to start at tight head this week, and at 10 it is Tom Liner this week, who was on the bench last week. Also Ryan Smith is promoted from the bench ahead of Connor Vest, who drops down. So a little bit of rotation, but no kind of real wholesale changes. The only change to the 23 is Sefa Agase, who is going to be reserve prop in the number 17 jersey. So yeah, very, very stable squad for the Reds. They'll be looking for the likes of Fraser McCright, who's been an absolute turnover machine, to try and get the better of the likes of a Luke Jacobson at the breakdown. And Liam Wright, likewise, surprisingly leading the way in lineouts this year. It's not one of the locks, it's one of the loosies. So yeah, that's game 1. Like I said, it looks like an interesting one. Now, I mentioned a bunch of All Blacks being back for the Chiefs. If you want to see some All Blacks, talking about especially the Rugby World Cup campaign from last year, a bit about Tamaiti Williams and his kind of growing up in a rural town with his sister and wanting to play for the All Blacks, and then that dream coming true and kind of being starstruck, and Fozzie kind of having not the most pleasant time of things in 2022, 2023. The All Blacks in Their Own Words series is out, season 2 on NZR+. I'll put a link down in the description. It's only just come out in the last few days. There's some really kind of interesting insights from the guys. Bowden Barrett, Sam Whitelock, Aaron Smith, Sam Kane, you name it. Gilbert Anoka talking about kind of the mental skills aspect of the game. Really, really insightful stuff. Talking about that hiding they got, and Richie Mo'unga's words from the South Africans right before the start of the World Cup. Do check that out. It's really, really a kind of fascinating watch. As I said, link down in the description. Saturday games, number 1 against number 8. Is this going to be a hiding? It was the last time they met. 54-28 back in round 5. That was in Palmerston North rather than Wellington, but the Canes absolutely put the Rebels to the sword. And from memory, the Canes had a pretty mixed lineup for that one, whereas the Rebels were basically at full strength. This time, the Canes have got a bunch of their big guns playing, so the writing may be on the wall for the Rebels, but remember, with the off-field turmoils that the Rebels are going through, this may be their last ever game. So if there's a reason to get fired up, it's just to get one more week in that Rebels jersey. For the Canes, the front row is stable with Numia, Almua, and Tosi starting. Remember, Numia has had like 5 tries this season, which is crazy for a loose head prop. Sangster gets promoted into the second row from the bench. Likewise, Lakai is going to start ahead of Karifi at number 7. He's been also a big threat at the breakdown. The back line is unchanged. There's a few changes on the bench with Brad Shields being back into the 23, Richard Judd also, and Kenny Naholo. But in terms of the way the Canes have been shifting their squad around this season, that is one of the most stable squads we've seen from them. Only 2 changes to the starting 15, and those being kind of bench promotions. Very, very stable for the Canes. For the Rebels, it's a 6-2 split to potentially combat that big Canes forward pack. Lockie Anderson also back on the right wing means Callaway can shift to his more usual position of fullback, but otherwise the starting front well, the starting forward pack, front line, the front row, the second row, the back row, those guys are all the same. The back line, like I mentioned, yeah, really minimal changes. So very, very stable starting 15. Alex Murphy, though, comes in on the bench, and Ikuasi is the kind of extra forward with that 6-2 split. So it's just Tuttle and Juster on the bench for the Rebels. That's the afternoon game. The middle game of the Saturday games is the Blues taking on the Drua. Likewise, back when they met in the regular season, it was a pretty lopsided one, but it was way back in round 1. This was up in Northland. It was 34-10. So a lot of rugby has been played since then, but the Drua have tended still not to travel well. So Blues are going to go into this one as big-time favourites, and they have shuffled around some of the jersey numbers, especially at 10, 12, and 15. Plummer switches back from 12 to 10 this week. AJ Lamb is in at 12 with Rico being at 13, and Stephen Perofeta, after playing 10 last week, is back at fullback, which means Cole Forbes dropped to the bench. You've still got some big gun players this year. I mean, the Blues finished second for a reason. Some guys have been in top form. All Black Mark Talea, 146 carries. He has more carries than anybody else in the entire competition. Usually it's loose forwards, but in this case it's a winger. They've also got 11 tries. Speaking of loose forwards, Hoskins Satutu. He's the top remaining try scorer of the competition because the Crusaders are out. Reese is top, but Hoskins has got a chance to pass him for that record. If he can kind of get on the board a couple of more times before the end of the season, we'll see. And Josh Beer comes in the second row. For the Drua, it's almost the same starting 23, just with one change on the bench and also a 6-2 split, potentially looking to combat some of that kind of forward power that the Blues are going to bring. So the only change on the bench is Tawake coming in as the kind of reserve prop. The starting 15 for the Drua is exactly the same. But the danger men to look out for in that Drua lineup, you'd have to highlight the likes of Yosef Omasi. 78 defenders beaten this Super Rugby season has been incredible. He's first for defenders beaten, and second is also a Drua player with Ravu Tamanda on the right wing with 65. So both those guys absolutely busting tackles for fun, but it'll be whether they can get any ball up front. Final game of the weekend sees the Brumbies hosting the Highlanders from Canberra. They have played this season. It was down in Dunedin. It was a close one, but 27-21, an away victory for the Brumbies. And the Brumbies have been an even better team at home. So the Highlanders are certainly in for a bit of an uphill battle. But yeah, on their day, the Highlanders still look like they can overturn anybody. Vela gets a start this week at loosehead prop for the Brumbies. Tom Hooper likewise switches from the back row to the second row for this one. And Rob Bazzini switches from 8 to 6. He's kind of been rotating between those positions all season. Jerome Brown and Charlie Cale into the 23, into the back row for this one. Ryan Lonergan and Noah Lotosio continue their 19 combo, but Danger Man Tom Wright at fullback is certainly one to look out for. He's had 1,000+ run meters this season. Only 2 guys have managed that feat, him and Caleb Clark, and he's first at fullback for the Brumbies. 10 tries. He has been in crazy form. And Corey Toole, the gas man on the left wing. Interestingly, they've dropped Nick Frost, who's their top line-out man, to the bench for this one, so a little bit more pressure on Darcy Swain, who's kind of been their other main line-out option for the Landers. Pretty stable. Mitch Dunshea is going to get a start in the second row this week, and Oliver Haig and Sean Withy going to get starts in the back row. So those are kind of 3 changes in the forward pack, plus Billy Harmon's going to have a different jersey number on his back this week at number 8. He's the second top tackler in the competition with 192. You think in Canberra he's going to need to be defensively very sharp. Backline-wise, Folau Fakatava and Cameron Miller are both back at 9 and 10, so that's a bit of good news because Cam Miller, prior to that big hit that he took a few weeks ago, was looking in cracking form, so good timing for him to be back now. Talea is also back in the number 13 jersey, and Rotumaitavuki Nipkins is back at 15. He's had more run meters than anyone outside the teams in the top 4, so these kind of the 5, 6, 7, 8 qualifiers. He is your top man, so he has been really, really sharp for the Landers as well since moving down there. Broughton and Ascot both dropped to the bench. This one likewise does Finn Hurley, but yeah, that's the final game of the round. So we will see how things go. Certainly the home teams will be the favourites. Which is your most likely upset? Is it the Reds down there in the Waikato, or can you see the Landers getting the job done? Potentially even the longer shots with the Drua and the Rebels. You guys let us know your thoughts, and talk to you guys again soon. See you later.